Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to Life in the Jungle, Season 1, Episode number 11. And this one is a tough one. We gonna rock our Bengals, we rock our Bengals all the way through. It's your boy, Coach Cam, and it's your boy, the Pharaoh with us, Alex B. And man, it was a tough one. We lose 34-31. Just seemed like to me early, I kind of knew something funky was going on. I didn't know necessarily that it will it it would contain into as far as a upset. I thought maybe we'll still pull it out, but when in ugly fashion, learn our lesson that you can't take anyone granted in the NFL and move forward. But up 11 in the fourth quarter, 31-20. It just seemed like things unraveled from there. What is your thoughts on the game? I won't get into the. I'll let you go. What was your thoughts on the overall performance? And uh, sucks to let one get away.
Heartache is the emotion that I'm feeling, as most Bengals fans are. I hope that the Brent Spence Bridge downtown is not overflowed with people jumping off the bandwagon. I've heard all kind of garbage throughout the day and since yesterday afternoon when the game concluded. Listen, it was tough. It's always tough anytime you lose in the NFL. It's even tougher when you lose to a team that you believe that you're better than, and which I know the Bengals feel right now because that was probably still the case. But by the same token, this is professional football. All of these guys were all state or the best in their high school ever. Made enough plays in college to get a look in the professionals. So you got to strap it up and you got to play. My first impressions coming out the gate when the Jets walked down the field, punched the ball in the end zone, and we go three and out is uh-oh. Because I could just tell that it seemed like something wasn't right. I'm not going to say totally that the Bengals, looked over, the Jets, but you could just tell something wasn't clicking. We got an interception with Jesse Bates. He didn't finish the play. We couldn't get it punched in down there. And then all of a sudden you started to worry. And there's a kid named Mike White who, Cam, you know how I am about this football stuff. I've forgotten more than most people will ever remember. I have no idea who Mike White is. Well, excuse me, I do now, but
Yeah,
I didn't prior
definitely.
to the game and his 400-yard explosion for three touchdowns. Um, it's really one that got away, and I feel like we've said that about all three of the Bengals' losses this year. Very easily looking at a ball club that should be undefeated. Jay Coop, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Very easily looking at a ball club that should be undefeated and have bungled, and I hate to use that term, their way through the three losses that we have. But I want to divert for a sec. We talked about this a little bit off the air.
Hmm.
I also want your take on it. Uh, it seems like the Bengals, out of all teams in the NFL,
Hmm.
and particularly here locally, have this growing caucus of anti Houday people that have a vendetta against the Bengals of all teams, which I can't understand. And it's so loud, and it's like the Bengals fans, we got to rub it in their face even when they lose, and when they win, they're not allowed to celebrate or get ahead of themselves or enjoy, the moment. Like, how dare you climb out of the cellar that you've been in for the past 2 years and forget about the magical run that Marvin took you on, making you respectable. Know your role and shut your mouth. Well, I got something to say because there's a few fan bases in particular that have been getting on my everlasting nerves lately. Uh, New England Patriot fans. If you're in our age bracket, which hate to put it out there, but let's do it. Let's say 30 and up. If you weren't a Curtis Martin or Drew Bledsoe fan, you're bandwagon. There's the door to the left. Get out of here with that crap. If you wasn't with the Patriots when they was Craig Eason and getting blown out by the 85 Bears at the Super Bowl, shh. And guess what? Every day it looks more and more like Tom Brady was the engine behind that dynasty that drove you to those 6 Super Bowls. So again, shh, quiet. Don't even want to hear. You can root for who you want to root for, but this anti-Bengals campaign, I'm not gonna call anybody out in particular, is getting on my nerves. We have Packer fans in Cincinnati. Okay, one of the most historical franchises, in the NFL, maybe in all of professional sports. I get it. I'm a big Vince Lombardi fan, so forth. But I'm listening to a team that, since the NFL merger or modern era football, which they consider to be anything 1970 and after when the AFL and NFL merged, we're talking about a team that's won 2 Super Bowls. But yet 96 and 2011 to be exact, but yet their fans are some of the loudest chirping. And we don't do a whole lot of trolling because of the respect that you and I have for the game of football, for these athletes that are out here, and we just like to talk about facts and have fun with what's actually happening. So I don't want to call anybody out by name, but it's getting on my nerves. Bengals and Packers have only played 14 times total, and in that time they're 7-7 head to head. I'm gonna keep it at that and get back to our Bengals. So I don't know how you feel about the animosity around the league. Just how dare the Bengals win, or their fans feel any type of way. But that was getting on my nerves, so I had to get that off my chest.
Hey, I always say it like you don't have to root. I mean, you don't have to be your favorite team, but what's the hate for? I've never understood it. I don't get it. We don't, like I said, we're the only team that don't still get to celebrate wins, or we're not supposed to. But hey, when you were down in the dumps for so long or had that stigma, they want you to stay there. It's something to talk about. It's easy to talk about, and it's a punchline. So, and when they don't have that anymore, that hurts them. So, um, it is what it is. But I think we do have a nice cast right now that can change that stigma. Unfortunately, we did drop the ball up there in New York. I was disappointed in the defense. And before I get into what I'm going to say about the game there, my boy Quee said, you got to come every day. Got to come to play every week to be elite. 3 road games are tough, and that's true too. Three straight road games. You're on the back end of that. You won the first two. The last one was a hard divisional game, which you really got up for that one. You know what I mean? That was the one that they were looking at. So moving, uh, moving forward, it was just like I don't think they looked past the Jets, but I think during the game it was a couple times where they thought they were done. Like when we were 17-7, towards the end of the half, and the defense don't close out with a good stop there. They let them drive down the field and get a touchdown. I thought they was done about there. I also thought they were done when it was 31-20 and they went up 11. I thought they was gonna roll over. Mike White maybe get another pick and then they iced the game, and it just didn't happen that way. Um, it's lesson learned. This is still a young group. Um, and I said off the record, I think you know we're 5-3. I know Bengals fans, we lose to doom and gloom, but look, we're 5-3. If the season ended today, we're the 5 seed. We're playing. Um, I'm not sure who we will play right now in the playoffs if the season ended today. Maybe the Titans, I believe, or something like that.
I
But
think they're the number 2 seed, I
and
believe.
if that's the case, no Derrick Henry. I'm loving those odds. Their defense is not the best in the world. I'll take Tennessee on the road in the wild card game. Absolutely. Right now, especially like I said, if you have no Derrick Henry, we hope he gets well as soon as possible. One of the best running backs in the league. I know you, as an old football savant, love to see the running back dominate the game and show his importance. So, uh, you know, prayers up to him. Hope he gets better and he'll soon. But it's not the end of the world. Most of everybody thought when we looked at the 8 games coming into the season, we had a chance to be 5-3. We just thought that the way or who we lost to would be different, and you had opportunities in front of you. That's what hurts. When you lose to the Bears, who was struggling, they didn't know at the time Andy or Justin Fields. You lose that one. You lose a Green Bay game where you miss a couple kicks where you had an opportunity to win. You lose a game to the 1-6 Jets where you're up 11 in the fourth quarter. You can't allow that to happen. Uh, we have praised Sweet Lou's defense uh, this season, but it was nowhere to be found in New York City uh, Sunday.
In-game adjustments, something that the Bengals as a staff have gotten better about this year, and I do mean on both sides of the balls. Non-existent yesterday, as you said, in particular on the defensive side of the ball. We didn't have an answer for some of the quick passing games that they were doing. Guys were wide open in ways that we haven't seen all year. Few guys were still out there flying around, but it was a quiet game for Trey Hendrickson. Some of the guys that you're used to seeing flash, on the screen. I saw Von Bell still flying around. Larry Ogunjobi was still wrecking stuff in the middle. Linebacker seemed, a step behind, and it was just one of those games. And you don't want to make an excuse anytime there's a perceived winnable game in the National Football League, and they let one go. And again, 5-3 right now. When I heard a lot of people talking about, even myself, I predicted the Bengals go 7-10, and that we kind of see this dichotomy that we're seeing now, where up one game, down the next. Find a way to win this one, find a way to lose this one, because it's still a young group. And some of the analysts and people out there were saying that the Bengals were probably a year ahead of schedule, and they probably still are. This is not a reason to jump off, the bridge or pull out the panic button. Now, let me say this: if we come out and we have a dud against Cleveland, next week, I'll be a bit more concerned going into the bye week. But there's an opportunity to get another division game and start 3-0 in the division and go into the bye week with a chance to regroup at 6-3. 6-3, I don't care what anybody says, even the most optimistic Bengals fans, is not bad for what we came into this season forecasting. So you got to keep it week by week. Don't get too high with the victories. Don't get too low with the defeats. And all of us were riding high after that Baltimore game, so that's why this one hurts a little bit.
Yep, absolutely. And read some of these comments because they've been rolling through. So thanks for your patience there. Chris Taylor, Lord Watcher of the show, the energy was way off. It was from jump, it was just too easy that first drive. This is a team that had zero first quarter points. They no, excuse me, they've never scored on their first drive. I know that for sure. So you allow a team with a backup quarterback to script, some plays together to score a touchdown relatively easy. That I kind of knew something wasn't right. And like you said, we turned around, we three and out. And I'm like, okay, we get the ball back, Jesse Bates interception. We don't score from the one. So you're like, something ain't right about this game today. Like I don't know what it is. Like hopefully we can get out here with a win. Um, but just not the case. Uh, but one thing I want to talk about um, is Jesse Bates. I know we love him here in Cincinnati. I love Jesse Bates. I think he's a fine safety. I still think he's one of the top top five safeties in the NFL. But we have to start looking at like, okay, his play because we depend on Jesse Bates a lot, for what we do, and it's just been this year just several missed tackles, um, sometimes missing assignments. Like yesterday on that final touchdown, he comes up thinking something, thinking another play is going to happen, and back in the end zone, I believe it's Tyler Croft,
Tyler Croft,
ironically,
former Bengal.
former Bengal in the back of the end zone where he's supposed to be, is
Yeah.
wide open for a touchdown. So it's things like that I've seen this year. Not much far as missing assignments on pass plays, but just missing tackles. He just hasn't played well. Like I say, I don't. It's not the Bible, but a PFF grade hasn't been well, and he's rated in the middle of the pack of safeties right now. Um, is there a concern with you regarding Jesse Bates?
I'm not
Um,
concerned right now with Jesse Bates, and I'll tell you why. This year he's coming to the season. The Bengals tried to throw out some figures and get a extension on the table and get one completed before the season started. They were not able to. I know that affected his psyche a little bit going into the year. Now again, he's still a professional. He's got to get ready, to play football. I feel like the Bengals have used him a little bit different this year when you have somebody like Von Bell, who's also flying around out there making plays. Ricardo Allen has come in and spelled both of them in the middle as safety. I feel like this is one of those seasons where Jesse Bates is kind of, told to sit back and be an overseer, back there and not give up the big play. And for the most part, that has not happened this year. Now, when it stands out as much as it did yesterday, we're kind of looking and say even the interception that he got was off of a deflection, but you still had to be in the right place at the right time to make that play. It's not an
absolutely.
effort thing, and anytime I see that, and I still see guys locked in, you can coach them up still, and I'm not worried. So with me, I think Jesse Bates is still locked in and ready to go. He's still a leader, around here. It's just something that we had to tighten down on. And he's not the only one. Yesterday was not the defense's best performance. And before people get to saying, well, I told you and so forth that you're going to hear, well, I'm going to say I told you so. I still think the Bengals are a very good young football team right now. And hopefully these are the situations that they can avoid going forward, not putting themselves in that position. Now, we'd be remiss if we didn't touch on it. uh, Even with that said, the Bengals not playing their best game, giving up, twice, multi-score leads to let the Jets back in the game. They still had an opportunity to win this football game
Mm,
and or tie that was taken from them. Now, I'm not just saying this as, I try. Of course, I'm a Bengals fan. I am a sports journalist and columnist myself, so I try to stay, as unbiased with a lot of my material, even if I am writing about them or another team I have interest in. There's no way as a football fan, if you watch that egregious call by Trip Sutter, is his name, NFL line judge. Let me say that again. Trip Sutter. For anybody who wants to look this clown up, put him out on blast or whatever, he needs to be reprimanded for that call that he made. The Bengals, for once, and I want people to pay attention to this, had all three timeouts in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter. Mike Hilton reads this crossing route, I believe it was, comes up like a bat out of hell. All of us that play defensive back in the past, including myself, know the 5'10" and under gang. He comes up, he's launching at this man's, I don't know, if you want to say at his highest point, maybe his thighs, but looked like around his knee or shin to make the play. And because the Jets offensive player ducks his helmet down, Hilton connects on a helmet to helmet play, which really was not egregious. And you could tell that that was not the intent. And the offensive player changing the target zone at the last minute and actually initiating it is what caused it. This clown throws a 15-yard penalty, changes the trajectory of a game. You've heard me. Anybody that follows my work or even just my casual stuff knows how upset I get about this. Every Saturday or Sunday, when you turn on the game and you see a total bullcrap call change the trajectory of a game, and it's costing teams and universities and professional teams games for a rule that I still don't believe is necessary. Now, if you're gonna fall into this narrative that they want to put out there about, oh, it's about player safety and stuff, it's not. It's about CTE and not wanting to get sued by, former players after they're done or retire, or their family members who want to keep the same standard of living that they had while that guy was bringing in, the $1 million checks and so forth. That's what it's about. That's why they made this change. Because as Richard Sherman said, if they really cared about player safety, they wouldn't be making them turn around and play games on Thursday or flying halfway across the world to London to play football games at odd times in the morning. That's not what this is about. So I'm not buying it. And yes, I am a football purist, and I believe that. Listen, if you can't tell the difference between a Jack Tatum kill shot and me purposely coming in at your head versus a regular football play, which is exactly what that was, then there needs not to be a rule. Everybody out there from the collegiate level on up is out there by choice. Okay, I never forget Ray Sherman, former Cowboys wide receiver coach. I don't even remember the player it was, but somebody wasn't giving him good effort in a Hard Knocks training camp series. He was a wide receiver, and he pulled him to the side and he said, "You know, son, you don't have to do this. There are other jobs out there. They don't pay as well, but there are other jobs out there.
Hmm.
Every job that you have has an occupational hazard. I don't care what it is, even sitting at a desk. These guys choose to do this. Yes, can you make the game safer? Probably, but again, we're talking about a game that was never meant to be safe and is not for everyone. And if you really want to do your research, you can go all the way back to the 1800s when they were still having this same conversation, and there were actually more deaths and more serious injuries in football because of people running into each other at full speed with no equipment on and the leather helmet, people getting sliced by them old fashioned cleats, and there was no penicillin to get the infection out of anything and dying because of that. The guy at Nippert Stadium here at the University of Cincinnati is named after was a victim of that. Listen, man, it's a brutal game, and there is a price to pay. I think that you can officiate it differently. You can do things like they're doing with the helmets and the equipment to, try to make sure concussions are cut down. When you identify a player that looks concussed, get him on the field. I'm for all of that. But this stuff about changing the entire fabric of the game, making it unrecognizable, making it impossible for a defensive player to play football, and changing outcome of games, that stuff needs to stop, man.
Yeah, oh, and you hit it on the head. I don't even know how to come behind that seriously. Um, but yeah, that like, and we're not here to say, and just everybody watching. And I appreciate it. The views are up right now. We appreciate that. But we're not here to say that that's the reason why the Bengals lost. What we're saying is, that's just simply a bad call that you do not make at a point of the game where it's two good, I'm not gonna say two good teams, but it was two teams battling it out, playing a great game of football, and you end the game on that call. It's terrible. And
And regardless of how the Bengals played up until that point, it's still a blown call.
yeah,
So it
yeah,
still affected the outcome of the game. You can't say, oh, because I've heard, oh, well, they deserve to lose the way they play. So what? The defense made a stop with 2 minutes left in the game. Offense had three timeouts for getting ready to get the ball. The Jets were at their own 20-yard line. You mean to tell me that Joey B couldn't put one drive together to at least get in field goal territory for McPherson or punch that thing out of there and get out of there with a win? Then what are we talking about? We're talking about a total different conversation and narrative than we've had the past 24 hours with this doom and gloom stuff. Joe Montana, I said it before, I'll say it again. Great players aren't always great. They're just great when they have to be. Every game's not going to be a masterpiece, but you deserve the opportunity to decide the outcome on the field, not by some referee, not by Roger Goodell and his goons at the league office.
yeah, yeah, and this
I'm
is a
fired up,
subject.
man.
Yeah, yeah, this is a subject where my guy the Pharaoh he get hot. He get hot, and but no, it's really true though. You know, it's unfortunate that call was made, and in this case, it's not like the guy was defenseless. He was a ball carrier for crying out loud. Like that. That's what makes it. That's what makes the call worse. I understand if he was a defenseless receiver, and it's subjective. I get that. But this dude would get caught the ball in the flat and lower his head and shoulder to try to, whatever, truck him or get whatever yardage. It doesn't make any sense. Mike Hilton couldn't have gotten any lower unless his knees hit the ground, which is ultimately not proper tackling form. So yeah, it's unfortunate. But it is what it is. We're 5-3. Um, Another thing I want to talk about, because we talk about the defense. Um, Once again, and this is maybe being me nitpicking. I'm not getting our scripted first 15 plays. They're junk. I don't know. I don't know what we're coming up with as far as our first 15. but it's terrible. You look at the Minnesota Vikings, we don't score until the second quarter. The Bears, we don't score a touchdown until fourth quarter. You look at the Steelers, first drive, I believe, is an interception. Green Bay, first drive, we don't score. Um, I'm looking at who did we play after that? Lions. We did good. That was a good script. Their first 15, we got a touchdown on that drive. Baltimore, we didn't score. Jets, three and out. Something has got to be done about the first 15. That's what gets your game started, get a rhythm going, and it's almost like they wait until the second quarter and say, "Okay, Joe Burrow, second half." They say, "Joe Burrow, do your thing," and then all of a sudden, magically, things start to happen. I mean, is it to the point where we need to kind of let Joey B do him at the line of scrimmage?
Well, listen, I think it can be feast or famine with that because Joe has a tendency to also, at least once a game, and you know I love Joe, you love Joe, hell, all of Bengals Nation loves Joey B, but he has about one or two head scratchers a game,
Yeah,
and it's usually with him trying to force a ball or make a play early on. Yesterday was just a bad stroke of luck when the ball got tipped and intercepted, in that way. But it's also being cognizant of the time of game, situation, hold on to possession being more important than maybe forcing a play. I saw him once yesterday when the pocket was closing in on him, go ahead and throw it down at Samaje P. Ryan's, feet. All of that comes into play. Now the Jets came out with a great 15 play script to start the game and punched it in the end zone. That kind of goes back to Zach Taylor. For me, it's kind of like he comes out, he's got a plan, he's going to stick to it until it doesn't work. Which, okay, that's old football acumen. But as you said, we went through how many games just now? 8 games, and you mentioned maybe one or two that we actually got off to a good start with the plays that you've studied on film and are supposed to work coming in, because that's exactly what the Jets did yesterday. They
hmm
saw something on film, and that whole first drive, they were exploiting it.
yep,
And a few things that never got corrected throughout the game. But again, that comes from planning and getting together. Now, I don't want to totally jump on them just because of the outcome, of yesterday's game. But, even Zach Taylor said it after the game. He said, we got outplayed, we got outcoached, we got out hustled. And that's exactly what happened. So as far as how do you fix that, that still goes back to him and offensive coordinator Brian Callahan and the game plan that they're putting in. And yes, I do think eventually it always does come back to letting Joey cook. If he doesn't like something, like he did in the Jacksonville game, it seemed like he was at the line audible in every play. So it's touch and go. You never know how that's going to pan out, but certainly you would like to see the Bengals get off to a better start in these games.
yep, absolutely. Got to get off the faster start, especially on offense. It helps out the defense as well. Just to go back and look at some of these comments here. We have Kenny, tough loss, but we have to put it behind. Focus on Cleveland. Who they? Jacob says, should we be undefeated? NFL is a funny game. Um, so I never look at it like that in sports. I never look at it and say, uh, we could be 7-0.
You
Like
can make a serious
we
argument.
possibly we could be 7-0. We're 5-3. We could easily be 3-5. It's you just have to win these football games, and it's hard to win in the NFL week in and week out. Um, so we just take it one week at a time, especially here at Life in the Jungle. Last week, after a big win, we were supposed to be excited. We was number one in the AFC, number one in the AFC North, 2-0 in the AFC North. No reason why not to be excited when you're at top of the best division in football.
It's a
Um,
game of inches, man, and
yeah,
that's what is constantly reminded. Even in some of these situations, you had another call where it was questionable. Should have been ruled a touchdown for the Jets. Again, we already spoke on the egregious call by the official calling Mike Hilton for that play. You would like for it not to come down to those situations, but you hear that a lot. And I told you I was going to mention it off the record, so I'm going to bring it up. Um, just like in this instance, we're talking about two professional teams. Would you like the margin of victory to be more? Yeah, who wouldn't for the team that you're rooting for? It's not going to be like that. Those guys are getting paid for a reason too. Sometimes it's not going to be like that. Go back to your state university a couple years ago in the college football playoff when I witnessed, and a lot of people did, the worst officiated game I've probably seen the past 25, 30 years when the Buckeyes took on the Clemson Tigers. And you had a lot of people saying the same thing, like, "Oh, well, that happens, and you don't leave it in the refs' hands." Well, you're talking about two of the top three teams in the country playing one another, who more or less have equal talent and guys that are going to be playing at the next level on Sunday the next day. Maybe every game is not going to be a blowout. It's going to be close. And that's what you saw yesterday. Yeah, the Bengals have a better team, but, some of the Jets' high picks, I saw a Quillen Williams sighting yesterday on that defensive line. Some guys that flashed and made plays. These are guys that went to Alabama and some of these other top rated schools. I understand they weren't putting it together. I happen to be pretty high on Robert Saley, their head coach. I don't know if he's going to be able to turn it around in New York, but certainly we gave them a nice little boost yesterday to possibly do so. But it happens. Now, what you have to do is, like our other viewer said, is not let this snowball and turn into a multi-game thing, which is what has happened at certain points in the past. And I'm still hoping and banking on the Bengals being a different football team to not allow that to happen. But again, the margin of victory is not always going to be to the point where you can afford missed calls like that, or not executing on our end. Like you said, Jesse Bates not being in the right spot. Uh, Uno, although he did come back and give us at least one gritty, he had a touchdown drop, early in the game. There are some other things that happen, and I'm all for that. That's how I approached it as a player when I coached and helped out and so forth, little league and everything else. You always tell them not to leave it in the ref's hands, and you want to play like that, but it's not always going to be possible. And that's where that whole saying, a game of inches here, an inch there, drop ball here, missed assignment there, this is what you get.
Yep.
So hopefully they're mature enough to move forward. And yes, there is an argument that we could be undefeated right now, should be, but that's where I'll leave it, because you can never really say in the NFL. But they've certainly played well enough to be undefeated. But again, game of inches.
Yep. I got let's see here. Edward Matthews says Cam, what's going on? Uh 100 Corey Booker. That's when y'all was talking about the Ohio State stuff. But anyway. Uh no, but he was also saying, was the first 15 good against the Lions, or are the Lions just that bad? I mean, he makes a good point there, because that's the only really game where we came out and the first 15, like plays were scripted, went well, and we got a touchdown and things like that.
Both,
So I
maybe,
mean, that's a good point.
maybe more than one thing being true.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Both things can be true. Frustrated with the lack of adjustments on defense, and also how offense lacked consistency with so many weapons. Offense was luckily gifted with 3 turnovers, or not sure how much the Bengals would have actually scored with the turnovers, which is true. You look at that, we did have the turnover. We didn't score one time. I believe we got a total of 10 points out of those 3 turnovers. Uh, Obviously, you like to get a little bit more, especially where you get zero on a possession. That's just simply inexcusable when you're at the 1 yard line and you have Joe Mixon. And but also, the offensive line, they didn't play well overall and as a group. To me, I didn't see them play well at all. Trey Hopkins, man. I once again, uh, I'm not. We don't pick on people. We don't pick on players here in Life in the Jungle. We just call it the way we see it. Uh, there's something that has to be done. Trey Hill's not the answer either. Not right now, anyway.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say let's be a
That's
little
not fair to him. He's a
be a
rookie.
little cautious on that one because he
Yeah.
was certainly thrown to the wolves yesterday when Jackson Carmen went down, and I haven't heard any updates. I don't know if you have.
It's
So
day to day.
okay,
Day to
I know it
day.
was a back injury.
Right. Back injury day to day. So it's better than expected. So we'll see regarding that. But I just seen yesterday on Mixon's touchdown run where the guy just threw Hopkins out the way and Mixon had to make a jump cut in the backfield and then cut it up for a touchdown. It's just like, you know,
I see that too much though, and I don't think people give Mixon enough credit for how special he really is. But he makes a lot of his first cuts and moves in the backfield.
yeah,
Honestly, if you watch a lot of tape on it, which I know we both do, and again, the Bengals technically only gave up 3 sacks, yesterday. But you know what else I noticed more so than just sacks, because that's the easy stat to look at, obviously, as I look at hurries and pressures as well,
yeah,
because that affects and kills drives, also. And that's what leads to maybe the pocket collapsing and you get a deflection like you got yesterday late in the game that ultimately set, the Jets up to go ahead and take the lead in the game. So it was by far not just on the offensive line, but that was a concern, getting down there in the end zone and not being able to get, a yard. I'll say it again. Coach Lombardi used to say, if you can't get a yard, you don't deserve to win the game. Now that I very much believe. You can't
yeah,
give me a push at the 1 yard line, then look, man, whatever transpires after that just is what it is.
yeah.
But defensively, getting back to that side, what concerns do you have? We kind of asked about, or you did, Jesse Bates in particular. Do you have any concerns about the defensive unit overall going forward based off what you saw yesterday?
Yes, I do. Because we're getting at a point of the schedule where it doesn't get easier. That's why I really wanted this game. We go 6-2. You're in first place, and then you're rolling and you're feeling like I said. You're like last week's show. You're feeling good about yourself. You go to Cleveland. Like, well, no, Cleveland comes here. You get to come back home after a 3-game road streak where you just swept that, and you come in here and you got a chance to bury the Cleveland Browns, who was, have some injuries and in key places. And now it's like, okay, you're 5-3. And what's so crazy, which is not bad, but it sounds so different. Excuse my dog in the background, y'all. I do apologize. But um, it's just gonna be tough to really like find a way to get that game back. You know what I mean? A hitting game
And
there.
we talked about that because I had to call you yesterday because you were real quiet. I had to make sure my dude
I
Cam
was hurt,
was all
y'all.
right.
Man, look, I was so sick. Uh, and there's a good comment here regarding that. Bengals had no film on that backup QB, which sometimes do bite you in the butt. But I feel like, hey, if we'd have put a little bit more pressure on Mike White, I would like to see more blitzes. Um, especially and make him force you to beat you down the field. He had an average throw yards per throw of 4.8, which means he was checking it down to the running backs and letting them do all the work, which Green Bay did a lot of outside of throwing it to Devontae Adams, a lot of check down stuff to the backs, get them in space, and they were breaking our tackles, which we have to simply just tackle better. Um, Bad tackling overall from the defense. But I'm concerned because you're talking about you still have to play a Patrick Mahomes. Derek Carr's coming up. I know a lot of people look and say Derek Carr, but he's playing really, really well. If you look at his numbers,
I'm a
he's one of
Derek
those.
Carr guy, man.
Yeah, I like Derek Carr a lot.
I think he gets the shaft a little bit like the Red Rifle used to here, where he gets too much of the blame, and even when they do well,
Yeah,
not enough of the credit. I like Derek Carr, so it's certainly something that the defense, as you said, some of the quarterbacks that we're going to be facing, before you know it, again, we're going to be staring down that Lamar Jackson barrel again, with Baltimore,
and
next.
will we be able to stop Chubb this week? Now, because normally I say we stout against the run, but we let Michael Carter do whatever he wanted to do against us.
Well, and that's a great segue because I know a lot of people wanted us to, preview and move on mentally to the Cleveland game, and I'm sure the Bengals are doing that right now as they probably wrap up, their workouts and stuff today. Chubb obviously being an elite running back presents a problem. Bengals are going to get lucky in the sense that you won't have to battle him and Kareem Hunt on Sunday with Kareem Hunt still being out.
Mhm.
But this is a situation where both teams really need a victory. Cleveland is trying to hold on with the amount of injuries that they have and people out, but that's still a talented ball club. And no, I'm not, just saying that just to say it. That's another game where we're going to have to go out and take it. Now, you would hope that the guys are pissed off and playing at home, realize the importance and the opportunity in front of them to, sweep the first half of the division games and they take care of business. But Chubb is only one of the problems that you have to potentially stop on that offense. I know he's not having a great year, but OBJ is still a freakish athlete. Jarvis, Landry has been battling injuries most of the year, but he's another guy that seems to raise his barometer when, the stakes are the highest and competition is in his face. Um, is Baker playing this week? I'm
Yeah.
okay because I know he didn't look like himself on Sunday, and rightfully so with some of the injuries that he's got. Case Keenum is even if you see him a little bit, is another person Bengals fans should probably be familiar with because you can do a lot worse than Case Keenum as your backup in the NFL. Now he's no Mike White, and I say that to say that we've seen Case Keenum start and win football games in this league, so they have tape on both. So let's throw that excuse out right
Right.
now. um, it it's a situation where I look even offensively, switching gears to the Bengals. We have some of the best offensive weapons in the league. You've got Jadavion Clowney, you've got Miles Garrett, you've got a secondary of Del Pitt, and I shouldn't mention it because I know you get upset, but they have a
Go
pretty
ahead.
they
Go
have a pretty
ahead.
good corner up there in Cleveland from the who has not given up. I'll get the stat.
Uno gonna scorch him.
I'll-
I'm saying that on record. Uno gonna get Ward.
hey, on Sunday, do it. I want to see. I want to see the gritty as many times as possible. So, but I'm just saying, they have some formidable players over there, led by Denzel Ward from the in that defensive backfield. So, I look for it to be a really good game.
Hey, hey, yeah, it should be a good game. Just to touch these comments here said, but Cam supported those calls on the Buckeyes Saturday. No, look, I ain't say nothing about those calls on 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 Saturday. I look, I was just rooting for Penn State because obviously it would help UC. It's no disrespect.
We all know Cam
But
hates his state
I told
university.
look, I told everybody that they would win. I knew they would, I knew they would win. But Anthony Scott here says defense is better than last year. But they should have played more man and press. They sat in the zone and got gashed. Yeah, they sat back, let Mike White be able to dick and dunk, and we didn't tackle in space well. That's the main thing. If we tackled in space, we would be fine. But just too many broken tackles that led to big gains. And he also says Cleveland is coming in desperate and has talent. Their pass rush is a concern too. Bengals better bring it. We talked about that. I'm not worried about Jadavion Clowney. He's overrated. Um, I'm not worried about him so much. I am worried about Miles Garrett. He's a different animal. He's out of this world. And we gotta figure out a way to keep him off of Joey B, who took a vicious shot by the way. Sunday. I felt like he held the ball a little bit too long. In that instance. I wouldn't put that necessarily on the offensive line. You gotta get rid of that ball. Um there. But once again, he's taking a lot of shots. Um, I just, I mean, I know you got to improve the line. And unfortunately, I would have loved to see the Bengals get in on the Von Miller deal. Cause that was something I mentioned last week.
You mentioned it last night too, and
Yes.
I didn't grill you about it because and I'm glad you brought it up because I'm like, wait a minute, Cam. So you came away with yesterday's performance saying that you wanted to address the pass rusher, add another pass rusher.
You're daggone right. You're daggone right. Because look, who is really getting to the QB besides Hendrickson consistently? You get some here and there. Hubbard finally, as far as getting sacks anyway, showed up last week. We didn't see a Hubbard sighting this week. Um, Ogan run stuffer. Reader's more of a run stuffer. BJ Hill is now starting to, come to earth and play like we expect. We expect him to play not bad, but be a solid, just be a solid piece. Um, Joseph Asai on IR, so you start to look, and like I say, I don't know the whole Wyatt Ray thing. I don't know why he gets some snaps up more snaps over Darius Hodge. I
I was gonna ask, where's Darius Hodge at? A guy who clearly flashed during the preseason as a guy that, if nothing else, and this is where I think some
third down.
coaches, overthink things. If you don't think that he's up to par as far as pass coverage or this or that, put his butt in there on third down and obvious pass rushing situations and let him do what he does best. He's gonna get to the ball carrier. You can see that enough. And I know everybody says, well, it's preseason. It's like, well, no, but you can see if a guy naturally has that pass rush ability. We had it in, like you mentioned, Joseph Asai, very big injury in our third round pick going down, in the preseason and going down on IR. But now that I think about it and you mentioned it, it would be nice to not depend on Hendrickson as much, going forward. And it seems like the rest of the guys are kind of, holding it down by committee. But then you have to look like, who's out there that could really make a difference in a pass rushing, situation right now, on the street. I know we signed, Noah Spence. I don't even know if he's still on the active roster, right now.
You can go ahead and claim him too.
Well, actually, he came out of Eastern Kentucky University, so but he did spend his first 3 years, and he was the number one overall recruit out of high school. He did finish at Eastern Kentucky, but the first 3 years, yes, he lined up on the other side of Joey Bosa, another guy from the that ended up being defensive rookie of the year a few years back. But we don't have to get into that. We try to keep it Bengals on here. Um, I didn't see him as being much of an impact either. It was something that they had to do, losing Joseph Asai, in the preseason, and you were hoping that Spence still has something in the tank. But again, I'm just not really seeing, the option right now because then with the Bengals primarily being a 3-4 defense right now, you're probably looking at a stand-up guy as opposed to, a traditional, put his hand in the dirt guy that you need out there. I mean, there might be some options as far as just some athletes that can get to the ball. But again, we have a guy that we just mentioned, Darius Hodge, who's sitting there that I would at least plug and play and see what you get out of
Gotta
first.
try. Yeah, you gotta try. I was open to possibly, trying to get a Von Miller. I just feel like a pass rush is essential. I don't think the DBs are necessarily horrible. Um, but also they're saying, the Dolphins are dangling Xavier Howard out there.
Ooh.
Now, like I'm just saying, at some point we don't give up picks and things. I understand that, but at some point I feel like, okay, you got Joe Burrow. Um, you got these weapons. You want his rookie deal. You gotta be aggressive as possible within these next 2 to 3 years to try to make sure we can try to make a push not only to win some playoff games, but to win a championship because that's what it's about. Um, I just feel like a move needs to be made. I feel like we're 5-3. We on the cusp of winning this division. We on the cusp of making the playoffs. I feel like we got a quarterback that has the mindset to be able to go on the road in a playoff game or at home, no matter what it is, when the stakes the highest to win some games. I just feel like we got to do a little bit more. I feel like we need a pass rusher or a corner. Like I say, I love Eli Apple, and I feel like he's played some good ball here recently. Um, but he's not a starter.
He's
He's
not.
simply not a starter in the NFL. He's a nice spell guy, come in, give you maybe 15, 20 snaps a game. He don't need to be on the field for 50, 60 snaps a game. So we got some, we can even, give up some later round picks and possibly, um, get some line help, get a center, get some interior line help because, like I
I would
said,
prefer that honestly, and you're gonna need more push in the running game as the weather changes, and you start talking about potentially being in the playoffs and playing AFC North football, where you're gonna need more push. You're gonna have to convert on those second and third opportunities that we're getting down in the goal line right now, and still not being able to convert. Even the quarterback sneaks that we're running aren't really getting a whole bunch of push right now. So I would prefer to see that honestly. Pass rush, like I said, is still an issue, but you still have to have somebody that's going to come in and make an impact. You mentioned the Howard kid down in the Dolphins, who was it last year he led the league in interceptions,
hmm
or it may have even been 2 years in a row that he did that, if I'm not mistaken. But I know last year for sure. Um, they're not going to give him up for pennies.
peanut. Yeah, no. If you talk about a first rounder, a fourth rounder, something like that. But I mean, it's like, would you give up a first rounder for Xavier Howard? I mean, think about it. You will have him for 2 years. I'm just saying, do are we trying to win? I'm not saying that because we spent some money. We spent some money. I give them credit. We've made some good moves. I'm not saying it like that, but are we showing that we really trying to take the step? We're not the same old Bengals just to kind of sit back and hope something fall into our lap. Are
Well,
we gonna go get something?
and typically I agree, and we made mention to that last episode where I think the Bengals will at least be around their phones this year, come the trade deadline, and looking and seeing what happens, or if somebody gets cut or waived on another ball club to improve. So I think they'll be doing that. But those first round picks are like gold. I mean, it would almost have to be somebody like a Xavier Howard, or complete difference maker, or yeah, he's long in the tooth, but you saw, the Rams go out and get, like you said, a Von Miller today to make a difference. That's what you would have to see. You still have to be careful though, because you don't want to mortgage the entire future. Yes, you want
Hmm
to live in the moment and you want to seize the day and take control of an opportunity where you've gotten off to a good start. But we've mentioned it several times today. This is still a young team. This is still a team that's building, maybe a little bit ahead of schedule. Do you want to set that back by potentially giving up, a first round pick that could turn into, that missing piece up front on either side of the ball? Or getting a number one corner. I think depending on how this year ends, we might be in a situation where we've been several times in the Marvin years where we're good enough at all the positions to draft a first round corner. We got pretty lucky with that over a series of years and seasons under Marvin's tenure, where Bengals were kind of set everywhere else, and they looked on the board, and the best player was a Jonathan Joseph, was a Leon Hall, Dre Kirkpatrick. Had flashes, didn't necessarily turn into what he thought. William Jackson III, uh, as my man barks back there. Yeah, he's probably barking at William Jackson III, but uh, yeah, there's a bunch of things the Bengals can do to really lock in, prove that they are trying to, push the pedal to the metal and go over the top this year. So you have to hope that they keep their eyes open, but again, it has to be worth it, especially if you start talking about giving up draft picks.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Corey Brooker said got to be looking to move Mac, possibly. That would be something that I would be interested in there as far as pass rushing wise. Um, but I want to ask you a question before we give our prediction. What is your gonna what is gonna be your key to victory for the Bengals against the Cleveland Browns this
Woo!
Sunday?
Key to victory is number one, play that Sam Weiss video as much as possible. But you don't live in
Yeah.
Cleveland.
Be looking out for that on our page because it'll definitely be
Oh
dropping.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna be posting it. Um, Keys to victory are a few things. Number one, I think after what we saw, um, trouble getting started yesterday with the Jets and trouble in short yardage situations. I want to get Joe Mixon involved again. I want him to keep the mojo going. He seems to be, a pendulum or a measuring stick for how much juice the offense has. When he's in the game, it seems like everything opens up. It's more balanced attack. So I want to get Joe Mixon going, take some of the pressure off of Joey B to constantly be Joey B all day, every day, during the course of the game, and establish him early. Flip it on the other side of the ball. Obviously, making sure that Dearness Johnson and Nick Chubb aren't pushing that same, tempo for the Cleveland Browns and making it easier on Baker Mayfield by them getting going. So I think the run game and who establishes that first and more often is going to decide a lot in the game. And then honestly, make those high draft picks that the Browns spend on that secondary, whether it's Del Pitt, whether it's Denzel Ward, the kid that they just drafted from Northwestern. Can't believe it's slipping my mind right now. Um, Greedy Williams, some of these other guys that they've gotten, out there in that secondary, make them earn their money. A lot of times you see the Bengals come out an empty set, and I still feel like we're not stretching the field enough. We got Tyler Boyd, we got Uno, we got T. Higgins. I want to, once you get that running game going, I want when they start creeping up, you go up top. And I think that the Bengals, by being aggressive early, can really put this thing, I don't want to say on ice, but really put it in their favor by taking control of the game. I don't want to see another slow start because Cleveland is just as desperate as we are trying to keep their season alive at this point. So I think the key is establishing Joe Mixon early, making sure that we're not giving up gashes on the run in the defensive side of the ball, and to also, when we do get them to creep up, go over top and help the Bengals, establish some kind of lead and hold on to it when we get back to the fourth and third and fourth quarter. If we got a lead, give the ball to Joe Dean and let him eat. Still on mute, Cam.
Yeah, make sure this dog ain't back here barking like crazy. But no, but yeah, Joe, we gotta get Jodine involved. And I thought we did a good job in the passing game as well. This week getting him involved. He got all the way down there. Um, set up a touchdown. But key of victory for me, man, block Miles Garrett. He could be a single-handed game wrecker. We seen what he did to the Bears. I believe he had 5 sacks in the game against them, just single-handedly, just kind of beat them himself. Um, he's a special player. We have to have a game plan for him. I don't want it. It shouldn't be any type of normal blocking scheme where we're just, you know, going empty and leaving Jonah or Riley Reef on the island.
That's
That shouldn't happen. There needs to be a lot of chipping going on. Needs to be some double teams using the bag. Different has to be make sure we communicate up front as well. We got here that says they need to be more consistent. They're a young team, man. Bengals are a young team, and when you're a young team like this, I think they're the fourth youngest in the NFL. You're gonna have moments like this, where you think they arrived, but not quite yet. They're learning. They're learning how to win. So
And with that said, though, having 5 victories after following seasons of 2 and 4 victories, they're obviously picking up some of that. And like you
yeah,
said, you're still gonna have occasional hiccups, like yesterday, and it's frustrating and it sucks, and you really have to prevent those games from happening against teams like the Jets. But again, we pushed the team that's been to the NFC Championship the past 2 years to the brink also in the Green Bay Packers. So it's a game of inches. It happens. But consistency, yes, is something that they need to, strive for. And you mentioned, getting Miles Garrett taken care of, or at least neutralizing him to an extent. It's going to require Samaje Perine, Joe Mixon, and the gang to be better in their pass protection also. CJ Uzama may have to stay in at certain times and get a chip on him. Or Drew Sample, who was drafted for that reason because he's supposed to be a blocking ace tight end from the University of Washington, is going to have to play a big role because it's not a one man job when you're playing Miles Garrett.
At all. Not even a little bit. Like I said, he played for that team up north. I like to call them the Brownies, but hey, he's a good player and, and something that has to be someone that has to be accounted for. But he said, but can't block. But I mean, hopefully, like I said, hopefully we can block him, man, because we can't get Joy B killed. It's very important. He stay upright so he can deliver the ball to our weapon. But we headed to the end of the show. Um, Prediction. I think it's your turn, sir.
Didn't I go first last time?
Did you go first last time?
I thought I did, but I'll take it. I'll take it. All right. So, prediction: Paul Brown Stadium, Battle of Ohio, Bengals versus Browns. We both need it. Bengals are gonna be pissed off, come out of the gate, do what they need to do. I'm gonna go 27-17 Bengals.
That's not bad at all. 27-17, especially with the injuries they have. It seems like Baker can't get it clicking with OBJ. Um, so looks like they're having trouble there. I like us to win. I like 24-16. I think it'll be a little bit of a low scoring game. It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be one of those old AFC North type games. Um, but I feel like Baker will give us a few. I feel like he's gonna give us a few turnovers. And I think we'll get after Baker. That line is a little beat up as well, and they do have former Bearcat rookie James Hudson that I believe will be starting on that line as well. So shouts out to him, but he has to take a L uh, on Sunday. But I believe we win in 24-16. Let's ride Jodine. Let's get him 100 yards, and let's win. And let's win this game and get to 6-3. Get the bye week. Get healthy. Has even more healthy than what we are, and be ready to make a charge in the second half of the season. You got to feel like at 6-3, you got to look at being 11-6 and 10-7 at that point. Um, that will solidify you most likely a playoff spot and give you a chance to compete for a Super Bowl, and that's all you can ask for.
Well, I know 6-3. It may sound, crazy with it only being a one game difference because we mentioned it with the record that they have right now. 6-3 looks a whole lot more sexy than 5-4.
Man,
And
look, it's crazy what one game, what the difference will make. And we was talking about that last night. Well, when you called, it was like, man, we 5-3, but that 6-2 look so good.
yeah,
It's unfortunate, but hey, we can't look back. We gotta look forward. Hopefully, that's what the team is doing, getting back on track. But hey, it's life in the jungle with Coach Cam and the Pharaoh. Check us next Monday as we'll be back at it again. Hopefully, we'll be back to talk about a win before the bye week. But until next time, we out.